When you use Reddit on your phone, how do you use it?
Yes.
What app do you use?
So typically, I use Relay for Reddit, which is a third-party app. Beautiful UI, great UI, and sorting and everything just works really well.
Android only.
Android only. Relay for Reddit.
What do you use on your iPhone? Or do you use it
I
on
typically
your iPhone
don't
much?
open Reddit on my iPhone, but I will either Google something with the word Reddit at the end, or I will stumble across a Reddit link and just open it in Safari, and it's just cool.
Yeah. So on the annoying thing about opening a Reddit link though in your browser is that it's like, please use the official app, please use the official app, and you like can't read more comments unless you.
Yeah.
I use Relay for Reddit whenever I'm on an Android phone, and I use Apollo for Reddit whenever I'm on an iPhone.
Yeah, I use something. It's just called RIF now, which I learned pretty recently. It was called Reddit is Fun, but I think since they were using the term Reddit in there, maybe there were some reasons for there.
Oh yeah, they did actually make everyone get rid of having Reddit at the beginning. So now it's Apollo Reader, I think, or something like that.
Yeah, and Relay was Relay for Reddit.
Yeah, Relay for Reddit instead of Reddit Relay or something.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wait, why didn't we let Adam answer?
Because he uses the official app and I don't want to listen to it.
The official Reddit app, baby. Although, as of like a month ago or a month and a half ago, I started using the Apollo Reddit app. And then all this stuff happened. So.
Oh, really?
Great timing, Adam.
Yeah,
This is your
perfect
fault.
timing.
What happened? Something happened?
So
Okay.
Reddit
Yes.
decided to make some changes to their API.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to start charging. Man, I'm already lost in my notes here. But anyways, they're going to start charging people for usage of their API because up until now, all of these third-party apps that we've been talking about were using their API for free. And just a little further back there, Reddit didn't used to have their own app.
Yeah.
I've been using Reddit as fun for probably 10 years at this point. Only a couple years ago was when the official Reddit app became an official app.
They bought Alien Blue.
Yeah, and they bought a third-party app.
Which is a third-party app on iOS.
Oh, wow.
They bought it, and they turned it into the official app, changed the color scheme, and made it available on Android.
Really quickly, for people that don't know, can you explain what an API is?
It's an application programming interface. It's basically a way for that website to access all that website's information.
Yeah, and so like
It's like a plugin that you use.
Basically, in all of our apps, every single thing that you do uses the API to contact Reddit and then send back something. And like that is an upvote is an API call, or like a comment is an API call, posting something is a call, reading your DMs is a call, like at least one call every single time.
Anything that you do that officially interfaces with the actual website servers is an API call.
Yeah.
So like we have third-party apps on Twitter that have a similar thing.
We used
where,
to.
Well,
yeah, true.
we used to. We don't anymore. We could make parallels with this.
Oh,
but
There are a lot of parallels
Oh,
with
okay.
this, actually.
Okay,
Marques?
got it. Yeah, you would you would like or retweet something, and that's an API call, and you had a limited number of those. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go through. I just wanted to like point that out there that like Reddit is insanely popular. Reddit, obviously, because mobile phones have become so popular, we use the internet on mobile so much. Like you have to give part credit to these third-party apps in helping make Reddit so popular because they literally didn't have one. Like people had to make them in order to have a good experience on mobile.
Yeah, they didn't have an
Reddit.
official app until a couple years ago.
Yeah, it was like very
Like,
recently.
it was all third-party apps for
They just
a
had
very
a
long
mobile
time.
website, I guess.
And it was garbage, yeah.
Yeah.
It's the website's not the. I love how simple the website is, and I still use old.reddit.com.
Yeah.
and everybody should.
Yeah.
But like that
very
in a web
forum
page is
looking.
it's just white with text across it.
Yeah, it's good.
It's the wrong one to use.
The right one to use.
I was literally going to throw you out of this room in a minute. Okay, so Reddit is going to start charging for API usage. They're going to be charging 24 cents per 1,000 API calls. And like we said before, an API call is like literally every single time you interface.
Upvoting, downvoting, like
Absolutely
most basic
everything.
thing.
Yeah.
So if you make a Reddit app and you have a single user that makes 1,000 Reddit calls, then you will owe Reddit 24 cents.
Correct.
So if you have a lot of users making a lot of API calls, you will owe Reddit a lot of money.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
And it's really hard to judge the multitude of what 24 cents per 1,000 API calls is because that seems pretty cheap, but like you have to start getting into the side of these third-party app developers. So a lot of the information we're going to talk about today is from Christian Seelig. He's the guy, I think I'm pronouncing that right.
I think it's Selig.
Selig, yeah, I think you are right. He's the guy who runs Apollo. We actually, funnily enough, met him at WWDC very briefly.
Really randomly.
After the whole keynote mentioned Apollo like 100 times, and all of us were like, ooh, this is a rough week to be mentioning that because all of it just got announced before.
Yeah.
And he's come out with some incredible information, a really long run through of kind of this whole story of how Reddit's been communicating with them and charging. Because I want to go over it. It feels like there's a lot of things that Reddit is doing poorly right now that's led to this really big backlash. And let's kind of try and go over all of it. Okay. All right. So let's go over the story. This might get a little messy because there's stuff kind of all over the place. Also, not Messi, the soccer player, which I know is thinking this is just it's going to be a little all over the place. But I want to start this out with in January. So a lot of these third-party app developers, they're close with Reddit. Like they talk to them all the time. They said usually Reddit is pretty good at least mentioning if a change to the API is coming that might break something in their app. In that sense, they're good at communicating. A lot of other senses with new features they want and stuff, they're pretty poor at communicating is the general overview of what these developers have said.
It's tough. Not a lot of companies have third-party apps that they work well with. So that's...
Yeah. And that's another reason why like most of these companies, and Christian very specifically, said that like they totally understand getting charged for this. In fact, he said he thought it was weird that for so long they never got charged.
Yeah.
Like it's still their website.
Yeah.
They're creating a better experience for it.
Yeah.
They do think they should be charged. And he was talking with Reddit in January, I believe towards the end of January, and they said, we have no plans to change the API, at least not in 2023, maybe years to come after that, but if we do, it'll be for improvements. So that's in January. In April is when they make the first call to people that they are going to start charging for APIs. And that's when Christian and a lot of other developers say, like, we get it. Totally understand, like, we do think we should be charging for it. We are making money off of this. Like we're using your website. It's kind of the what's the remora fish for the shark of Apple. We talk about that.
Yep.
Totally reasonable. And
Marques just perked up. He's like, oh yeah,
I understand it.
Yeah.
I understand.
I'm actually
it.
mad at how good you are at analogies sometimes. And then correct me if I'm wrong, but they basically use Twitter as an example of like, we will be charging, but don't worry. We know there's a ton of backlash with Twitter and how much they're charging people. Like, we don't expecting it to be that. They said it'll be based in reality.
Yeah, so I might be wrong about this Twitter thing, but what I understand is that Twitter also has an API that you can use. It's just that they make the API call costs so ridiculously high that it's sort of like, yeah, we totally have an API that you can use, but like no one could possibly ever afford it.
Also,
and that's part of the reason why all the third-party Twitter apps had to shut down.
I thought they just banned third-party apps.
I think that they might have officially banned it eventually, but I do you remember the token thing that you used to have to deal with?
Yeah, you would have a limited amount of tokens that you could, basically limited the number of users that you could have. So if you had a third-party Twitter app with 1 million users, it was capped, and then once you reach that number of users, a new person would try to sign up and sign in through the app, and it wouldn't work. And they'd have to start a new listing on the Play Store for a new version of the app. Yeah. So I was using this old one, Flamingo, because I got a token and I was in, and they ran out and they just didn't refresh, and it was an old app no one could use unless they had it a long time ago.
Yeah.
But now they're just banned.
You still can use the Twitter API.
Yes,
I don't know if
for a third-party app.
Probably not for a third-party app. But,
okay.
But you can use it for research or use it to like scrape data to do a project or whatever, but you can't make a new Twitter app.
Yeah.
And they're also charging $12,000 to $42,000 a month for that information.
Sure. And like lots of them just outright ban YouTube bans you can't make another YouTube app, another third-party app for YouTube or Instagram or anything.
But YouTube and Twitter also had apps when they made their own apps. They didn't like fully rely on other apps to be made to like help make them as popular as they are today.
Yeah.
Okay. So after they said they would not, they announced the API change. They said it will be pricing based in reality, unlike things like Twitter.
Unlike Twitter, yeah.
And then also didn't give them a price at that point. So this is in April.
Yeah.
They said we'll get back to you in 2 to 4 weeks with the price. 6 weeks later, that's when they come out with the 24 cents per 1,000 API calls. And then that's when all of the developers started getting together being like, this seems absurd.
Yeah.
Christian did the quick math. It would cost him over $20 million a year based on what they're claiming.
Based on how many people are using the app.
Yeah. He gets about 7 billion API calls a month.
So it's over $2 million a month.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
a month.
A month.
Oh.
2 million a month.
Okay.
Over 20 million a year.
Got it.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous.
And these changes will be starting. The billing cycle will start on July 1st. We are
30 days.
Yeah, and the actual bill will come August 1st. So it's not like the bill comes right then, but that's still a very, very, very short amount of time. Just for example, I know you remember this. Remember when Apple bought Dark Sky?
I don't know what you're talking about.
About what?
Dark Sky.
Oh, Dark Sky? Yeah.
So when they did that and a lot of people were using Dark Sky's API, Apple gave them 18 months to find a solution. And after that 18 months, they decided to give them another year.
Yeah.
So that's how long Apple gave Dark Sky API users to change this. Reddit is giving these people about 30 days.
30 days.
Which is...
for like every third-party Reddit app.
Yes. And then do you want to explain why that's such a pain? Like, there's a reason why for some people I'll say the obvious answer and you can say why it's a problem, I guess. So like the obvious answer is, we'll calculate how much each user would use, charge based on how much those users would be, right? So like if you think one user is probably costing you $1 to $3 a month, you have to also put in like Apple Play Store, like App Store, Play Store taxes on that. Just charge them per month for how much it would be for that.
Boom. Our app now costs $6 a month just to use it at all.
That sounds easy.
The biggest issue that Christian said he was facing was that a lot of people on Apollo, like Apollo has different pricing structures. There's a free structure, which most people use, but there are a lot of pro users. And the pro users, you can either pay per year or you can pay monthly.
I believe so, yeah.
But there are a lot of users that just pay per year because he gave them like a discount if you paid per year, and it was like $12 a year or something, right?
It's like 12 or 20 a year.
Right.
Think, yeah.
So he was like, if I didn't have these yearly users, I could just put a thing in the app that says, I'm so sorry. If you're going to keep using Apollo, you have to start doing a subscription. Beyond the fact that, an average user cost him $2.50 a month, there are power users that cost $7.50 a month, right? And so he would have to like work out his pricing structure so that it like kind of includes those power users as well as the lower end users. And but the biggest problem here is that all of those yearly subscribers that paid $12, maybe last month they just subscribed for an entire year, right?
Yeah.
So kind of best case scenario is that you're going to have a number of users whose yearly subscription expires next month, the month after that, the month after that, the month after that. But that means that just for July or just for August, his bill would be about $50,000 because the amount of people that subscribed for a year 11 months ago, you would have to pay for all of those people, and that's about $50,000 with that many people.
Yeah, not quite the bill, but basically the money he would have to eat because he owes those people
whole year.
He owes those people their years of subscriptions they paid for already.
Right. So there's a feature in these app stores or wherever you're using where you can either charge people every single month or you can charge them a lump sum for an entire year and maybe incentivize give them a little discount. But maybe they would have quit after 6 months, so you got more money out of them. This happens a lot more, I feel like, on the iPhone because people realize iPhone users have more money and spend more money on apps and stuff. So a lot of iPhone users will be given the opportunity to pay for a year of a subscription at a slight discount.
Yeah.
Now they have so many people who have paid for an entire year and suddenly are going to cost way more money.
Yeah, because
so
they're
they
going to
have to
still
find
use
that.
API calls, and he's just going to have to eat the cost of all the API calls. So he said the first month is going to cost him about 50 grand. The second month would cost him maybe 45 grand. The third month would cost him maybe 40 grand. Eventually, that would run out, but that's still like hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, and
altogether.
It's stuff he believes that he owes to the people because they already paid for it. Like you deserve that service. Like it is totally fair for them to think they deserve the service, right? Even though things changed very quickly. And that's another reason why this like telling you nothing's going to happen 4 months later, going completely against what they said. And then also 6 weeks after that, charging a price that is like completely bonkers. I don't have the exact numbers on here, but like, I think one thing that was really interesting he mentioned was Reddit has a limit of API calls a like user is allowed to make per day, and it was something like I don't remember the exact number. It was in the thousands, and his average user is making around 300, and they called that inefficient. And he was like, "This is a weird thing where if like you told me I could borrow your Model S, right? You said I'm going I'm going away for the day. You can use it. Just don't drive over 100 miles. And I get back and I drove 3 miles. And you're like, oh, that's weird. David borrowed it last week and he only drove 1 mile. It's like, why am I comparing myself to David driving? Yeah, I drove more than David.
When you
but
said don't drive on over 100.
Yeah, you set a limit for me. I'm nowhere near that limit, but then you're going to like compare me to these other apps or drivers.
So Christian was like, if I had more time, like a couple more months, I could maybe reduce the amount of API calls that are called by like preloading pages or things. But I just don't have enough time, and also like that's not going to make a huge difference.
Well, and you also have the time then for the people who had already paid their year-long subscription to get closer and closer to the end of that. I mean, if you think about the Dark Sky API, if they had given them a year to make this transition, he can end giving the year-long subscriptions now, start charging the reasonable prices that will actually pay for this, and then not just eat hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, like,
and you'd still honor the people who you gave the year-long thing to. Yeah.
Okay. So in this process, when they were communicating and this first came out, Steve Huffman, the CEO of Reddit, if you're on Reddit and have ever seen someone named Spez comment, he's like the head, he's the CEO, but like a lot of people just see him as kind of like the head moderator on the website. He had a call with Christian who they were talking about the new charges. Christian mentioned how like based on what they're going to be charges for API calls and his average calls, it would cost them about over $20 million. So he says he made a joke along the lines of, I'm going to like, if you're telling me that Apollo for Reddit is going to cost you over $20 million, like, why don't you just cut me a check for $10 million because Apollo's way and make Apollo quiet because it's very noisy compared to what you're saying. Steve Huffman, I think this is partially due to some connection issues because he made him repeat it a few times, but took that as a threat, made Christian kind of restate what he said, and then immediately realizes it wasn't a threat, that it was a misunderstanding. In the phone call says, I'm so sorry, I misunderstood you, I thought you were threatening us, we've had some bad calls with some other people, but like I thought you were trying to threaten them. They both like laugh it off because it just seems like a misunderstanding. Then directly after that, there's an internal meeting with Reddit, and Steve Huffman tells people in the internal meeting, Apollo is threatening us and trying to coerce us, and kind of is like using him as the scapegoat to make third-party app developers like the bad guy. And then this gets to Christian. Luckily, he had recorded the whole call, leaks the call because he's at this point, you have this huge company and people inside this company now using you as a scapegoat for something you didn't say, very obviously, and releases the call and proves that he was not doing that.
Yeah, basically he said like, the reason that you want to start charging us is because you have an opportunity cost to the amount of users that you could be using on your official app, right? And say that opportunity cost is 20 million a year. If you cut, because it costs me about 20 million a year based on your current API cost. So that means the cost of Apollo to you, the opportunity cost of us existing to you is 20 million a year. So if you just cut me a check right now for 10 million, I will shut the app down. Like, it sucks because I love running this community. I love having this app. I love interacting with the people who use it. But he said, you know, you can quiet us down, or you can make us go away quietly because or he didn't say you can make us go away quietly.
That's what Steve Huffman thought he said.
Yeah, he said you could quiet us down, but by that he meant we have a very noisy app in terms of API calls being noisy because there's a lot of API calls.
Because 7 billion API calls a month.
So he misinterpreted him, but he was like, "Are you threatening us?" And on the call, Christian's like, "No. I'm saying a noisy API call," and he immediately goes, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I completely misinterpreted you. I thought that was a threat." And he's like, "Definitely not a threat at all, and I'm so sorry that you interpreted it that way. It seemed fine." And then if you listen to the call, and then you listen to that call, he leaked the call, and then immediately Spez just goes and tells everybody he's threatening us, like telling us that he's not going to let us go quietly.
I think Christian got like a post on Mastodon, like, can you confirm the you threatening Reddit, like based on these internal meeting notes on that, like we were all told? And he's like, no, that is not at all what happened. So he releases that. We actually met him at WWDC, like I mentioned. That was on a Tuesday, and he still felt semi-hopeful, I think. And then by that Thursday, so this is almost a week ago, Apollo, Reddit is fun, and Sync, which I've not used, but apparently is very popular, all said they're shutting down on June 30th. Apparently, it seems like this pricing, not just that, the pricing and the back pay they would have to make because of all the people with year-long subscriptions or like longer subscriptions, stuff like that, is just too much for them to be able to handle. Because these are is Apollo only 2 people running it?
It's just 2 people.
It's just 2
Christian,
people.
and he hires an independent web developer, and that's it.
Well, he has
That's
like a guy
crazy.
running the
Or
server,
back-end of it,
and
server
stuff. Like,
engineer. Yeah.
So it's not a lot of people. And that happens. If you are on Reddit, you probably have recognized the last couple days about 7,000 different subreddits have gone dark in protest. I just click Reddit all the time on my phone. My Reddit is fun app. I had to take it off because I was going to it so much, but I did notice on like Monday, I clicked on it and I was scrolling. I was like, man, all of these posts are from the same subreddit. This is like really, really weird. And it's because every single subreddit I'm a part of, except for one, is participating in the blackout.
Yeah.
So it's
Do you
only
want to explain the blackout, though?
Yeah, pretty much.
We didn't talk about that.
Subreddits are, the way they're blacking out is by going private. We did this with MKBHD subreddit. It was initially supposed to be for 2 days. A lot of them are stretching it.
We also didn't say that, like, basically everyone on Reddit is very angry about this.
Yeah, there's insane backlash.
Christian made like a whole really long post about it that we read, and then Spez also did an AMA, which people assumed were going to be to talk about the API changes, and he basically didn't address anything.
That's just dumb. That's just dumb.
He only replied to 14 people, and like none of the answers were about any of this. And so all of the mods on all of the subreddits have basically band together to do a blackout.
Yeah. So, and in that blackout, you set it to private. We did this with the MKBHD one, and then basically users can't look at those subreddits. So like
anyone who's even in it can't see it anymore?
Nope.
Okay.
And if you're a moderator, you can see it, but that means nothing. I actually believe even our videos, we all know our videos, right? They're just straight up shutting down.
Indefinitely. Until this maybe changes.
Well, yeah, that's...
If it does.
I'm getting like Twitch vibes from Reddit, which is funny. So Reddit is weird. And I'll now that I have all this information, I feel like I'm kind of digesting that it's obviously a scummy move to like just sort of boot all third-party apps because you're not making any money from them and they're making money from you. So that's sort of like the high-level version of why they don't want them to exist anymore. But also Reddit has always been interesting to me because so many of the communities on Reddit are super vibrant and active, but sometimes it's easy to think that that is all of the people in the community that cares about the thing when it's a surprisingly small fraction. So I'll try to give an example of like, I could use Sony phones. I could use any, like our Android even. We'll just go like, all right, this random LG phone came out and we all as a community love this phone. And so we're all going to talk about how much we love this phone, but we are a tiny fraction of like
the total market,
the world, and we have a hard time seeing that not everyone feels the same way, even though this community is very much vibrant about this one thing.
I have a good example real quick to help you prove that point is there was a video once I remember, it was the top of our Android, and it was the top of our Android like ever at that point, like one of the highest upvoted our Android posts ever. We looked at the traffic coming from Reddit who watched that video, and is less than 1% of the total views on that video. So yes, I totally agree that this is not indicative of all the people in that community and how they think, but it still is a very good aggregator of places, of people who like to have a little more conversation than a YouTube comment.
It's a good window into the 10% of the most interested people in any topic. Which is what makes it so cool. That's why Reddit is dope. But also, 90% of Reddit users are normal people just lurking around. Not doing too many API calls, not leaving any comments.
They still are.
Every time upvoting a few things.
Every time you click comments, every time you click a link, every time you click into a subreddit, that still is quite a few API
But I would
calls.
imagine the bell curve of what it looks like to be a Reddit user is a lot of people not making many at all, and then a really, really big curve towards the power user end where there's people who are using Reddit the most and have a bunch of communities to subscribe to and commenting and upvoting and doing a whole bunch more activities. And so I wonder, I mean, I'm pretty sure Reddit sees third-party apps as like a tiny blip that they just, we'll get rid of those things. And I just looked it up actually just to see. The Reddit official app has 100 million downloads. on the Play Store. The Relay app has 1 million. I looked up some other third-party apps. They had far fewer. So it's like, let's see, Sync for Reddit, 100,000 downloads. Boost for Reddit, 1 million downloads. So Reddit, trying to be this giant site, which is one of the biggest sites on the internet and represents like normies, is in this like internal fight with itself, because what makes it special is the people who care the most and engage the most. But what makes them big is all those other people.
But you know what's interesting is social media overall has this thing called the 99-1 rule, where 90% of the people are lurkers, 9% participate a little bit, and only 1% like actually make most of the content.
And make the wheel spin.
Yes.
Yeah. Like we are the 1% of YouTube that actually makes content.
Right.
And if you did some, like imagine YouTube had some stupid decision to like make being a creator awful on the site, mathematically, they're only upsetting 1% of the users. Whatever, screw those 1% of people.
But those are the people that
make the people that make it what it is.
Make it work, yeah.
And so the 99% of the people are like, whatever, I didn't care about the feature anyway. But now all the stuff you love on the site is gone. So that's kind of what's happening with Reddit, which is the 1% of people who actually make the subreddits
are the
work.
People you're pissing off.
And who make the content and who contribute and who moderate and who do all this work. And we're doing it for free. And even the people who are making third-party apps for better experiences for Reddit, that is a relatively small number of people that they think that they can just discard because it's a small number.
It's a high proportion.
But now the
activity.
99% of people who are using Reddit are logging in and just being like, everything's blacked out. Like I can't, this sucks. So Reddit made that like, we need to make more money decision to like get rid of the third-party apps, but that is the perfect wrong thing to do.
Yeah, that's what makes this so
thing
outsized, especially with something like Reddit.
Yeah.
Especially with Reddit.
So here's the clips outro. Hey guys, thanks for watching this clip. We just wanted a quick outro before we peace out at the end of the video. And so that we remind you to subscribe and like the clip you just watched, because there's going to be more. And so you want to be subscribed. And then the algorithm push of the like button is great. But also we wanted to get to the tail slate, because we did do a slate at the beginning. So now let's do a tail slate so that Adam can sync the video with the audio. Dude, it's right there. Pass me the thing. I want to clap. I need to clap.
Goodness.
Oh, there we go. All right. This is for Adam.
Bingo.
There you go. You do your mic. Jesus. And you do your mic.
I got gunk in my shit.
Now we can peace out.